Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining How Startups Can Use NLP to Build a Competitive Moat. I'm Isabel Camp, the Marketing Events Manager at Cohere. We will go through our agenda today now. We are starting off with how AI is transforming user experiences. Then we'll move to what is NLP and the opportunity for startups to differentiate themselves with NLP. We'll continue on with making NLP a part of every developer's toolkit, the benefits of managed large language models, and building products with language understanding. Then we'll move on to demos, and we will wrap up with a question and answer period and next steps. To start off, I would love to introduce our speaker for today's session, Kemi Tijani. Kemi leads the partnerships and strategy for Cohere with over 15 years experience. Kemi has worked with customers across multiple industries and helps developers and startups differentiate themselves and realize business value from cutting-edge technologies. She has a background in computer science and app development. Welcome, Kemi.
Thank you so much, Isabel. It's a real pleasure to be here. Well, thank you all for joining the webinar. I'm really excited to be taking this session. Like, nothing excites me more than just helping companies figure out how to use new technology. It's been kind of my mission my entire career, and I'm happy to talk through how Cohere makes AI and NLP possible for startups. Well, first, I wanted to talk more broadly about artificial intelligence and where we see it in play day to day. As we go about our regular lives and social interactions, you see AI in your familiar apps like Instagram, where you can take a really basic picture with your phone and apply a filter and make yourself look fabulous. Right. Another example of AI in action that you see every day is Netflix, where it looks at your behavior and your history watching shows or movies, and then recommends content that they believe is going to be interesting or relevant to you. And my third example is Google, which is our esteemed partner here at Cohere. We do a lot of our technical building on Google Cloud, but then also we use Google services every day, just like most people do. And this example is how when you're searching with Google Search, it starts to sort of predict what you're going to be searching for. And it's doing that again based on your previous searches or your location, something that it knows about you. And I'm sure at this point you're wondering, okay, Kemi, you said you were going to tell us about NLP, and now you're talking about all these other companies. But actually, this is a great example of NLP in action. I'm going to define it in a minute, because basically NLP is the ability for computers to understand language, just similar to the way that people do. So if you think about how you consume language, the different formats, and how you spend your day to day. So it could be sort of text accompanying an email, or some sort of voice assistant or person that you're interacting with. Could be chatbots when you're interacting with a brand that you're trying to contact, or when you're trying to translate from one language to another. These are all applications of NLP. So, keeping it really simple, natural language processing is a field of AI that allows computers or machines to understand language, similar to how humans do. Now, when you think about NLP, I'm sure you're wondering, well, why do I need computers to do all this? Like, what's the value? And I showed an example earlier with Google and search, but the reality today is that over 80% of the world's data is unstructured. So if you think about all the data that you have, even your personal data or like your company, you have lots of data in emails or in document repositories, call transcript, chat transcripts. Sometimes, and we find that that data is actually orders of magnitude more than the structured data that you have sitting in databases or data warehouses. And so I want you to imagine that everything we've built so far from like an IT perspective is sitting on 10% of the world's data, and what's possible when we unlock the other 80% of that data. What kind of experiences can you give to your users, to your people, and just new products and efficiencies that we can drive. And so that's why NLP is significant and why it's important, is that it unlocks that 80% of data that's currently not really in use. And at the bottom of the slide, we just have a few examples. I might have talked about a few, but I wanted to call out, if you're working with lots of contracts, data and invoices, customer survey, feedback, news articles, social media posts, reviews, chat logs. These are all kinds of unstructured data that today you don't really get much value from. And with NLP tools, you can start to understand what's happening in that data and take actions based on those insights. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, why is it that you don't see NLP everywhere? So, Google obviously uses it. Some of the bigger tech companies are using NLP or other forms of AI, but you don't see it in everyday applications as much as you would like to. Well, there are two reasons for that. First one is that language is extremely complex, right? Depending on where you are in the world, you have different dialects, different uh, accents, and different phrases that people use day to day. Also, modeling and like building out these large language models that are able to understand language at this level is extremely difficult. You would need a very specific set of skills, ML engineering and modeling skills. You need a ton of compute power, and you also need access to large volumes of data to actually build this. And we find that for most companies, well, that's prohibitive, right? Unless that's your core business, it might not be something that you are able to invest in, particularly for startups. And so you find that, it's mostly, again, big tech that's doing a lot of innovation in this area. And that's exactly why Cohere is looking to innovate by making it accessible to all companies. And now, this brings me to our partnership with Google Cloud. As I mentioned earlier, we partner with them on various levels. One being on our technology side with our infrastructure sitting on Google Cloud. I'm not going to bore you with all the technical details, but Google has invested in a new supercomputing technology called TPU4s that make it possible to process in 1 second this amount of text that it would have taken us over 30 billion years to process in the past. And so Cohere is built on Google Cloud using the latest technology. And we're also built by ex-Google brain engineers. So we're very close to the technology and close to the space. Now, our mission really is to make it accessible, easy, affordable, and safe for companies like yourselves or anyone who's looking to build an NLP solution. And so Google brings the technology, and we bring the ML expertise and knowledge of the domain to your company. Now, here are our fearless leaders here at Cohere. Just wanted to touch on this really quickly. Aiden and Nick are both ex-Google Brain ML research scientists. Ivan's been working with neural networks for almost a decade. And we have a ton of talent within our team that's really focused on taking ML research and making it usable every day for companies and for developers all over the world. Now, I want to talk about making NLP part of your toolkit or a developer's toolkit. Today, like I said, if you want to do anything with NLP, the challenge would be finding people with the right skills and then also getting all the resources that you need to make that happen. Now, for an average developer who's just starting out or who's just trying to build a simple application, that might not be something that is accessible to them. And so we're looking to bring down the barriers, make it as simple as an API call, and you can basically do any transformation or operation on text that requires some form of language understanding. Now, again, I know I talked a little bit about just the volume of unstructured data. And now I want to talk about the value of getting, of actually understanding what's in all of that data, right? Imagine if, for instance, you could plug in an NLP model into your email assistant and it would actually understand, like, who you're communicating with, how you like to communicate. It could tell if it's professional or if it's urgent, or if it's a customer versus a colleague versus something personal. And if it could help you be more efficient by just responding or creating drafts so that you don't have to spend your time going through tons and tons of email every day. Well, that would be an example of how NLU can drive efficiencies within your applications or within your day to day. And so that's just one example of the kinds of value you can create. Imagine if all the time you spend drafting and reading through emails was all sort of minimized because you have an assistant that goes through that for you. And then take that sort of interaction to other applications that you use day to day, whether you're in sales or engineering and you're trying to go through docs or notes or comments, trying to understand text-based data at scale. Well, NLU makes it possible, or NLP, and those terms are used interchangeably, make it possible for you to do that today. The second way that we make it accessible to developers is this concept of a managed large language model. So again, NLU is driven by large language models. So these are models that are built huge amounts of text and are able to understand text that you send to them, perform an operation, and send you back the outputs that you want. Now, the way we offer it, we focus on building out all the capabilities, and that involves training the large language model and also creating endpoints or specific models for very specific use cases. So we have endpoints, for instance, for classification, for extraction, for things like search. Some of them are still sort of coming soon. But the idea is that when you want to perform an operation, you don't have to build it from scratch. You can just send it to us. So we focus on building out all the NLP and AI ML capabilities. And you can just focus on making that capability meaningful and valuable to your customer. So, you could be building a downstream application that needs summarization at one point in the pipeline. You send it to us, we summarize, and we send it back to your application. It's really that simple. And on this side, I just wanted to show visually all the steps that you would typically have to go through if you were to build this by yourself, right? Building from scratch, first you need to have the data. And then you need to build out a model, incur the cost of training that data or training that model, deploy the model, and then you can start to think about performing a task. And then after that, you need to maintain the model to keep it up to date. When you're leveraging an LLM platform like Cohere, they're just two steps. You collect a small data set and you perform your task. And so we make it, again, super accessible, very easy, regardless of your background or familiarity with AI or ML. The third point is savings on infrastructure. Now, for a startup, I know this is potentially huge. You're going into a new domain or into a new industry, you're trying to be innovative. But as much as you want to bring new technology to the market, you also want to do it profitably, and you want to do it in a way that shows investors that you're being frugal, especially with the markets the way things are right now. And so being able to launch new features, test out new ideas really quickly without taking on upfront costs on infrastructure or hiring new talent just for ML expertise is a great way to start. And we make that possible with our pay-as-you-go pricing, and our access to existing models that you could just leverage for specific tasks. Now, this I think is where Cohere really starts to shine compared to any other approach to using NLP, and that's the idea that you can actually leverage what we've built, which is a really um, powerful language model, and then make it specialized for your own task by customizing your own model. And the way that works is that, it's two steps. One is you collect some training data, to create a custom model, and you can do this on our platform. And then step two is you just call that specific model that you built, and you now have a custom model that's giving you the best of both worlds, which is the power of a large language model in the background and the localization it needs for your specific use case, whether that is your specific tone, language, personality, or just specific entities that you want to extract or expand on within your own solutions. And here I just wanted to highlight some of the use cases that we see companies really get excited about in the market. The first one is classification, and it's as easy as giving a signal on a body of text. You see this in content moderation, where a social media site might want to know, well, is this toxic or is it safe? And they want to take decisions on whether to show that content to their users. You see classification also in like customer support use cases, where you're trying to basically classify the customer's utterance into a particular intent, or into a particular sort of feedback category. Again, maybe positive, negative, and neutral. Another really important use case is search. So you think about all the data that you have, maybe on your website or in your docs, and wanting to make that searchable across your organization or for your customers. Today, if you wanted to do that, you would need to come up with some sort of metadata strategy or keyword strategy that makes it possible. And with NLP, you don't need to do that. You can just have the full body of text, embed it, and our semantic search would understand the context and be able to retrieve those results when similar queries are made. We also do summarization, which really is just taking a large text and coming up with a shorter version of it, but keeping all the nuance and the context that is important while taking out all the stuff that's really not key to the message. A generate endpoint is one of the most exciting for me personally, because I think that's where you start to see a large language model do what other models can't do, which is just telling it, what you want, or giving it an instruction, or giving it an example of text that you would like to generate, and having it take that example and generate similar text based on parameters that you set. And if all of this is sounding confusing, don't worry, I'm going to show a few examples later on. But generate is one of the most exciting places, and it's one of those endpoints that I'm most excited about. And we also do extraction and clustering, which again are transformations on with our embeddings models, where with clustering, you can put in a bunch of text or lots of different text data and see, how they cluster. And the idea is that similar text stays together. And if you see those clusters creating natural groups, then you can make decisions based on the clusters that you see. And those could be categories of users or of anything, really, depending on the kind of text that you embed. So now that we've covered a few use cases, and I hope you have a high level understanding of NLP and why it's important and why using a large language model could be a good way to get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about actually building applications with NLP and what that would look like for the average developer. Now, In this slide, I'm trying to show what the current sort of traditional way of building NLP into products is. So think of a product flow where you have different steps in the process, and you have just one task that you're trying to use NLP for. Now, let's say this is a summarization task. Let's say this is a solution where you take in agreements like legal contracts and you want to summarize them and store a summary within a database or some sort of repository. Now, step one could be where the document is scanned. Step two is where it's sort of converted to text. And then step three is where you want to do a summary. Now, in order to do this summary traditionally, you would first need to go through all the steps below: data collection, model training, inference, software, doing modeling evaluation, incurring compute costs, hiring a team of full-time MLEs or ML engineers. You need to think about safety, maintenance, continuing to research and innovate, and then also labeling your data. And so, because this is the complexity that it would take to just have one summarization task, this would need to be a very high value task for you to invest in all of this. Whereas with Cohere, the way it would work is that you have, again, same solution. Step one, you do your scan. Step two, convert to text. Step three, you make an API call to Cohere, where we've basically handled everything around building, managing, maintaining, and continuing to innovate on the model. And you don't even need to worry about like what's happening in the back end. If it's a general enough use case, you can just send an example within your prompts and get feedback. If you want it to be more specific, you can create your own custom model. And that's how simple it is. Also, we see a lot of customers or companies now using multiple NLU or NLP tasks within the same product flow. So if I stick with the previous example where you're summarizing legal documents, well, you could decide at a later stage to add a new feature where you're actually extracting entities from that document. So you want to know who's party A and who's party B, and what's the topic or what's the contract about. And so where you've already figured out the first task, I showed on the previous slide, which is summarization. Now you have a second task that you want to do with a large language model. And again, all you need to do is when you get to that step, it's make an API call to Cohere. Now, let's say your extraction task is very specific to your industry or to your business. Let's say it's like custom entities that you want to extract. Well, in that case, you can build a custom model on our platform. And so to do that, you would collect a small data set, train your custom model, and then deploy it. And then for the extraction task, rather than call on our baseline model, you would just call on a custom model. And that way you've built what would have been a really complex NLP solution in just, with a few lines of code. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, I wanted to show you a few examples of products or flows that have been built with our API and in some cases other APIs. This is an example of a Magic Gathering card generator. It uses two APIs. One is the Cohere Generate API, and the second one is a text to image API, which is actually a third-party solution that we just send an API call to. Now, the way it works is that you see a form interface where you put in the name of a card. For those who are Magic fans, you know how what kind of names work for the game. I'm not a player myself, but I've heard great things and look forward to trying it. And so this example, the user puts in winged egg as a name for the card. Now this phrase or the name gets sent to our generate model, and our generate model takes that and generates a description for this creature, like what is a winged egg. And so, and it's generating that description the way a magic card would sound, right? So it's not just defining a winged egg, but it's like giving it the tone of a Magic the Gathering card. And so once you get that description, it now sends the entire description and the name to the text to image AI API that now generates an image for this card. And the output from this flow is a card that has the title being winged egg, an image of a winged egg based on the description that was generated by our endpoint, and then the description coming under it. And this is something that one of our co-founders, Nick, built. He's been playing with it for a few months, and I think the last iteration you could actually generate an entire deck of Magic the Gathering cards and get it shipped to you. So definitely look out for that one. That's a cool way to see our APIs in action. I have one more example. This is very different, but I wanted to show you kind of what's now possible with NLU or NLP. And I do use those interchangeably, but they mean almost the same thing. Um, and this is around the work that we're doing with open dialogue chatbots. And I'm sure, like day to day, you come across chatbots with some brands that you contact, or just support agents that when you reach out to a company, and you find that typically when your chatbot has not been programmed or doesn't understand your concern or your inquiry, it either routes you to an agent or it just doesn't do anything. Well, our vision for chatbots, which I'm going to show you an example very soon, is a chatbot that truly understands your meaning and is able to carry the conversation in a way that seems very natural. So I'm going to play this video. It just takes a couple minutes, and then we can talk about how that works afterwards.
Hi there.
Hi, John. I'm your Lululemon virtual educator, and my favorite way to move is through circuit training. How can I help you today?
Hello. I'd like to get a gift for my wife. What do you recommend?
That's great. What does she like to do?
She's into hiking and yoga.
Great. What does she do when she's not working out?
She likes going on walks with our dog or working in the garden.
I think I have just the thing for her. It's called the Dance Studio Mid-Rise Jogger.
She could use a new pair of casual pants. Why do you recommend those?
These pants are designed for studio to street versatility. The technical fabric is super soft and has a 4-way stretch. It's perfect for yoga, Pilates, or walking your dog. It also features a slim fit, cuffs at the ankle, and a flattering, high-rise waist. She'll be comfortable whether she's working out or hanging out.
Sounds great. What do they cost?
They're $98.
Anything you'd recommend I get with them?
Yes. How about a cute yoga tank and some great socks?
Great idea. Where can I find those?
Here are the links. Dance Studio Mid-Rise Jogger, Yoga Tank, Socks.
I think I'll take all 3. Can you help with that?
Sure thing. I'll add all 3 items to your cart.
Thanks for all the help.
You're welcome. I hope she loves her new gear.
I'm sure she will.
Have a great day.
Yeah. So I just want to talk a little bit about what you saw and how that's different from what's possible today. So we have an agent that's truly conversational, is able to ask the right questions, is able to react to the information that she's getting. When he said, my wife likes yoga and hiking, she thinks, okay, well, what is it that is a good fit for both activities, and gave good reasons why that is. And so this is different from an agent that's just copying product information and just giving you bullet points of, here's the description of the product. It's actually relating it to the customer and what they say they're looking for. It's also able to go look up information about specific products and share it with the customer, and then help the customer ultimately complete the transaction. Now that's where we're going with NLP, and everything you see around, just having that conversation that seems natural, that doesn't seem like a machine or a robot. That's NLP in action, and that's the power that we would be bringing to customer support experiences and chat experiences going forward. Right. I'm going to show one more demo today, on our playground. But first, I wanted to walk you through the Cohere website. So if you landed on our website and signed up, you would be directed to this page. This is our dashboard page. And I just want to show you a few features on this page. First is that you have access to a trial API key. We offer free trial keys for you to get started. And so you can copy your trial key here and use within your test environment or your dev environments for your application. We support Python, Go, and Node.js. And so you can copy the API call from up here as well. If it's your first time working with NLP, you can actually get started. We have a few guides here. So if you want to get started with sentiment analysis or summarization, customer support, you can review our getting started guides or our documentation. And then we have a lot of content on the playground, on how to set up your prompts for your specific use case. On the left, we've got our guides and presets, which is where we are right now. You can take a look at the models within your organization. We have a whole bunch of models because I'm internal to Cohere, but on your page, it would be empty on day one, and you can create your custom model by just clicking on this plus button here and going through the flow. And then we have settings for billing, usage, for generating production keys. So if you wanted to generate a key for your company, you would come here to do it. You can manage your team members by coming here and adding a new team member. So super easy to navigate. And then you can also access the documentation from the top nav bar. Actually, I shouldn't have clicked through there. You can access the documentation, or you could go to the playground. So I'm going to do a quick playground demo because this is probably where you would be spending some time early on. But first, I want to acquaint you with the environment. So we have this cool Windows 95 layout for now. And we have three main models that we make available through the playground. First one is generate, which I'll show you a bit more in a minute. We have the embed model, which really is where you can embed, or like think of it like uploading a bunch of different text or text files and being able to see how they're plotted on a graph. So there's already some content uploaded up here, and I'll just click calculate, and it's basically working out how similar they are to each other. And so you can see a few clusters across the screen for statements that are similar. Like this is asking about hours, when are you open, when do you close. This is about opening hours, and the others are about other topics as well. And the last one is classify, which is a little bit different because it's more of like a specific endpoint that does classification. The way it works is that you give it a few examples of different labels. So here are the labels we have. Let's imagine this is for an e-commerce store. You have shipping and handling, returns, or order tracking. And then we've given it a few examples of what each of these, what utterance would map to each of these. We only need to give it 5 examples of each. So because there are 3 labels here, we have 15 examples. And then when we put in a new query, we can just classify based on the labels that we had inputted. And so you can see Here, where the user is asking if they're able to return, it's able to match it to a return or an exchange. And then where they say, when can I expect my package? It's able to map it to tracking an order. So I encourage you to sign up and give this a try on your own. But I really wanted to show you a cool email generation prompt that I set up in about 5 minutes this afternoon. Now, the way the generate model works is that you need to tell it what you want to do. And then if you want the best results, you need to give it a few examples. We call that few shot prompting. You might see it in our documentation. But if you're not familiar with it, don't worry. It's really simple. It's just saying, well, here's a task I want you to complete, and here are some examples of what good completions will be. So for this specific example, I'm trying to generate email marketing copy. And I've told it what this program would generate a promotional email given a title, audience, and a tone of voice. And then I gave it two examples. The first one is an email with title, use your air miles before they expire. The audience is members, tone is persuasive. And then I gave it a full body of an email that maps to those inputs. And then I gave it another example for holiday events and dates. And now we're going to give it the task to generate an email for a third example, which is huge savings on store-wide sales in November for customers. And I want the tone to be enthusiastic. So let's see how it does. Okay, so it said, dear customer, as we approach the holiday season, you may be wondering what to buy for your loved ones. Here's a list of items to put a smile on everyone's face. Our prices can't be beat. And it's giving you, 3 different discount tiers for this promotion. We can generate other examples. So if you think, well, this isn't quite what I had in mind, I want to see what another example would look like. You just need to remove the old generation and click generate again, and it would give you another example. And now it's gotten super creative. Again, it said, you're receiving this because you've signed up or you've expressed interest in getting these emails, and it's named a few brands that it's familiar with and saying, hey, our sale is in November, happy shopping. And so again, the idea isn't that it's going to give you like facts, because we haven't fed it with any facts. There are ways we can actually keep it grounded and give it some facts, maybe about your company or about your products, give it the ability to read from some of your internal data sources. But just off the bat, if I were a marketing communications person and I was a little bit stomped on like, how should I structure this email? This could be a really cool place to get started. And then I could just go in and like change around the names or the entities that are not related to my business. And it's really as simple as giving it, a description, a couple examples, and just asking it to generate. And every time you hit generate, it's going to give you another version of that email. Right. So that was my second example, and I hope that you see how sort of easy and adaptable our platform is. Like I said, you can use it for multiple types of NLP tasks, and we're here to support you. We've got programs specifically for startups and for partners. So, whether you're a company that's building your own product or in the space that you're helping your customers build out solutions, we have a program for you. Now, we know a lot of companies are new to NLP. And so the very first engagement we would have, which is complimentary, is an NLP assessment. And that's where we look to understand, well, where are you today? Where do you want to be with your product? And what is it that you have or will need to achieve that, and give you feedback around that. The second is, we're putting together a fundamentals course, which we call Cohere's NLP University, that actually takes you through getting started. So in addition to our guides, you can go to our YouTube channel and see videos from some of our experts, and actually start to build your knowledge around how these large language models work and how to get the result that you want within your application. The third value add for you is that you actually can tailor the best models to your use case. And so you will have access to our teams. We've got solutions architects, and our engineering teams are always happy to join on calls with customers or with partners to understand your use cases and help you figure out how to get the best results from our model. So if you're really new to this space, or if you're a veteran and you're trying to do something that's just not working, don't worry, you could just reach out. We will help you figure it out and we'll get you on the right path. And then lastly, we have a completely free tier for you to get started with. You can start with testing, development. So if you're just ideating on a solution, you don't incur any cost at that point until you take that solution to production and you upgrade to a production key. Um, Also, we have a really cool program that's launching soon, which is our Sandbox Accelerator. And you can think of this as prepackaged, like I would say some of them are about 50 or 60% of the way to an actual solution. And what we wanted to do with those is for common use cases like chat, like semantic search, where there's a lot of applications out there. We wanted to simplify how you get started by building sort of a baseline structure and allowing you to take that and customize it within your own environment. And so if you sign up, once those assets are released, you will have access to them, and we'll be happy to help you get started with the sandbox as well. And then lastly, we're always excited to see what developers and companies are doing with our products. And so if you're working with anything, if you're working on anything cool with the Cohere API, we've got several platforms on which we can amplify or support your go-to-market or your product development. And so I would say just let us know, and we would work with your team to figure out the best platform to highlight how you're using our language models within your applications. This is my very last slide before Q&A. I know it's been, a long session with a lot of information. And again, you feel free to reach out to me or anyone else at Cohere. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can sign up on our website and drop me a message after this call. But I'm going to pause now to see if you have any questions. I'll be happy to help.
Thank you, Kenny, for that great presentation. I do have some questions here. The first being, how do I sign up?
To sign up, you just go to cohere.com. Right there on the page, you see sign up or get started. Just click through. You need to authenticate your email and and then you'll be directed to the dashboard. If someone else at your company already signed up, you might need to contact them because we do restrict access at the organization level to just one domain. And so if you're trying to join a company and it's not letting you do that, you can just ping us. We've got a chat function on the website and we can help you figure it out with your admin. But it's really as simple as signing up on our website.
Great. And which model should I pick?
That's a great question. So the models are the choice of the model depends on your task. And so there's really not like a one size fits all approach to any specific task. What we advise is that you start, with the problem that you're trying to solve, and we can provide guidance on like whether it's something that requires higher performance or speed or higher precision in terms of accuracy. And based on that, we can give you some feedback on what models will best support the outcomes that you want.
Perfect. Thank you. And how can I invite additional members from my team?
Yeah, sure. I showed that a little bit earlier, but if you signed up and landed on the dashboard, on the left-hand side navigation there, right at the bottom, I think there's team, and you just click through there. It's as easy as just adding their email and sending them an email, and they will get a message saying, you've been invited to join Cohere. They could sign up.
Perfect. And how does Cohere support an organization if they're just getting started with NLP?
So there's so many ways we can support you. There's a whole team here on the partnership side and on the sales side, helping companies get started. And the first step will be to understand, again, what's the problem that you're trying to solve, or what's the use case that you have. And then we will help you figure out, how do you solve that use case with our models. Sometimes it's, requires a custom model. Sometimes it just requires creative prompting. But whatever the requirement is, we can help you evaluate that and then support you every step of the way.
Great. And if we don't have a machine learning team, how can we use Cohere?
So Cohere is actually for people that don't have ML teams, because we do all the ML stuff. You just need to know how to apply it. And so to use us, in most cases, you can use our models out of the box. If it's not a specific domain, or if you don't have like specific language you want to capture, if you do need to customize it for your domain or for your examples, then you just need to give us a small data set, usually somewhere in, between 50 and 100 examples, sorry, 50 and a few hundred examples, again, depending on what performance you want. So the more examples, the higher the performance, the fewer examples, again, if it's something that's general enough, performance would be great. But if it's very specific, then it needs to see a few more examples.
Great. And is there a place where we can play with Cohere's models?
Yeah, you can play with our models on the playground. When you get to the dashboard, it's on the top nav bar on extreme right. You click through to the playground. It looks different. I think it's pretty cool. For some, it's a bit of an acquired taste. But yeah, you would see all our models that are public featured there, and you can select the model you want and play with it and test it within the playground. Again, if you're having any issues getting the results that you expect, you can either email us or chat with us, and we will get someone on to support you.
Wonderful. And I do have one last question here. It is twofold. Large language models seem to be everywhere these days in research and on Twitter. There's a lot of attention and buzzwords. How are they changing technology in the long run? And in parallel, how do they move the business needle?
Oh, that's a great question. I think in the long run, large language models are going to transform the way we interact with technology in general, right? You're not going to need to sit to type out an email, for instance. You would have an assistant draft it out for you. You might not need to plan or like flip through channels to figure out what you want to watch, because it understands you so well that the recommendations are just spot on. I think we're going to see it applied in every industry, from education to financial services to retail, e-commerce, really just everywhere. You find people communicating a lot, which is everywhere. And I think for business, the opportunity there is that there's there's we're moving from having screens be our primary interface to having language be our primary interface. And I think the businesses that are going to survive in the long run are those that are able to make that leap and meet the people where they are. Like, if I could just talk and say what I wanted versus watching or like waiting in line somewhere, I would choose that option every day. And so I would choose the businesses that make it easy for me to interact with them.
Great. Thank you very much, Camille. That is all the questions that we have for today. And you can always get in touch with us. Our website is cohere.ai. And thank you very much, Camille, for your time today and everyone for joining in.
Thank you very much.